That was fantastic, Jake. I appreciated every second of that.
It's not often you get to use mouth noises to that extent to make something. So
no,
I thought it'd
not something worthwhile. I mean, let's be honest. I make mouth noises all the time, especially on this podcast here. It's what I feel like I just do all day long. But no, that was terrific. Thank you for that. Folks, you've joined the Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football podcast. If you weren't thrown off by the new and improved intro music for the week here, you found the right place. You're joining us at the right time. We've got our same live show. Still Jake and myself here. We're doing our thing, so to speak. So yeah, our show, if you haven't guessed by that lovely intro, is a show about nothing. Why are we calling it that? Because we literally got nothing this week.
But I don't want it to sound negative, Dustin. I feel like this is coming off sounding negative. What we want, because look, everybody in the world is talking about the exact same thing in fantasy football right now. It's the fantasy playoffs. That's right. It. It's the fantasy playoffs. And it's COVID and injuries are everywhere. And so people are freaking out. What do we do with the fantasy playoffs? Everybody else is already taking care of that. What we wanted something a little bit more natural, kind of get back to basics. You know, what DTFF used to be all about.
Is that what we were about? It's been so long. I just don't even know.
I thought that's what we were about. We need to get a mission statement drawn up, Dustin. A new and improved mission statement.
That sounds like a lot of work, and I don't know if my brain is up for that.
Fine. Let's continue on with our lack of mission statement, which at least for this episode is just to be about the general idea of nothing.
Yes. No, it's going to be a fun one. We're just going to kind of spitball here with whatever comes to the front of our cranial lobes here. And we'll just sit and chit chat. Saddle up to the bar, so to speak, and let's
chat.
Yeah, and let's chat some fantasy football here. So as Jake alluded to, flat out said, it's the fantasy playoffs. Jake, how is your fantasy playoffs looking?
I got a couple of leagues where I have a first round bye, which is very nice. So I don't have to deal with all the disasters going on out there. That's great. There's a couple that I got booted from rather unceremoniously here this weekend. One of those being Scott Fish Bowl, which I missed out on by like 2 points. They average your total season-long points with your previous week's points for that first round, and I just missed it. And here's the kicker, Dustin. I was so hungover it was a birthday celebration this week, and we went out celebrating on Saturday. I was so hungover I forgot to check, and I was going to remove TJ Hawkinson from my lineup. Didn't do that. He didn't play this weekend. I'm not saying that I would have necessarily gotten the points to make it up, but it's possible. It's possible.
I am sorry. That is
just
too bad.
More deserving people will get to go on this way. It all balances out in the end.
That's right. My fantasy playoffs. Thanks for asking, Jake. You're so considerate.
I just knew you were going to start talking about it. That's the only reason you asked me to begin with. I knew is you were just waiting for me to wrap up so that you could talk about yours.
No, I would never want to talk about myself. Come on. We in our home league, we decided this year for our fantasy playoffs to start week 14. We didn't adjust for this season just to kind of see how it goes. Cause it was one of those we're like, well, we don't really know what's going to happen. Probably didn't look too close at the schedule, to be honest, to see that there was week 14 buys. I got bumped from the playoffs, lost in the first round to the commissioner of all people. So that stings a little bit.
That starts to feel, fishy when there's no adjustment for week 14. And then who do you end up playing in week 14? The commissioner who beats you in week 14.
That's right.
Jeez.
I know it sucks, but is what it is. I got my other team that's still in. I've got one hope left, and that's it. It's my only hope. It's like Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars. It's my only hope.
You ride that hope into the sunset, my friend. You do whatever you need to do. Is this a team that you feel confident in? I'm just curious.
Yes. Yeah. This is my team where I've got a very good record in. I'm number 1 seed overall. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah.
Wait, so do you get a first round bye then in that league, or do they not do that?
We should get a first round bye. Because only 6 teams make it. So
I would hope
it hasn't rolled over for the playoffs yet for whatever reason, because my commissioner runs a ton of leagues. So
fair. Hey, commissioner is a very tough job. We have
absolutely.
To get that out. I don't ever want to, even our own commissioner, who we like to make shit out of, Brian does a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
He really does. And it's a thankless job more often than not. And, I'm part of the reason for that, because I never say thank you to my commissioner. I need to start making them cookies, giving them holiday cards might be an improvement this year.
That might be. That very well might be. But yeah, enough about our teams and our playoffs here. Let's do our beer of the week, Jake. This is another special one here that was gifted to us from our league mate Nathan,
who is moving on in the playoffs, by the way. Just a shout out to Nate.
Congratulations, sir. So yeah, this is from a local brewery here in Wisconsin, Lake Louie Brewing, which we love Lake Louie, or I do. I shouldn't speak for you, Jake. This is their Louie's Reserve Scotch Ale. How are you feeling about this one, Jake? I know you have a very much love-hate relationship with Scotch ales.
I'm nervous. I don't have a love-hate relationship with them. They have one with me, which is they love to get me drunk and entice me in. And then the hatred comes the next day when they just decide, you're done. You're going to sleep for 19 more hours while you try and get yourself out of this headache. And it rarely ever works.
Well, good luck with that, because this one comes in at 9%. So it is a fairly strong beer. It is a tall boy. It's very tasty. I'm not going to lie.
It's good. I love this style of beer. I love the taste of this style of beer. But yeah, I do hate the after effects. So you're right. I have a love-hate relationship with it as well.
So if you had to give it a 5 mugs, ranking out of 5.
Mugs?
Yeah. Instead of stars, you do mugs.
Can I fill the mug up part way so that we can still have an incremental scale?
Of course. Yes.
Okay. Then in that case, I want to give this 4 1/4 mugs.
Yeah.
I love the taste.
Yeah. I'm going to say 3.75. It's a little thick and cloying for me. It's a little sweet. It's got a little bit of sweetness to it that I don't know.
Word of the day, toilet paper? Cloying?
That's right.
Yeah, nicely done.
The more you know.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed with that. All right, well, we average out to a clean 4 mugs then. I can do that math right up top.
Look at you.
Brain bucket.
Look at you.
Don't say I'm not smart about things. Well, Dustin, I'm smart about other things. You know that?
Barely smart about other things. Let's be honest.
You know what I'm a genius about?
What's
beer
that?
Bets.
Well,
I'm a genius for the beer bets. Do we want to recap last week's beer bet where I look like the smartest man alive?
Yeah, you look like the smartest man alive. Okay. Let's just recap the bet here first before I go on my little rant here. So the bet was Tom Brady versus Josh Allen. I took Tom Brady. You had Josh Allen. Just total fantasy points. Tom Brady had 30.12. Pretty good week, you would say, right?
Good enough to be QB2.
QB2 overall. Like that's great. Good call on my part. Oh, Josh Allen had to come in at the QB1 with 36.22 points. I mean, come on. I
love it.
Wait for us for one to pick a very good game where both QBs fared very well. But the fact that I had QB2, like, I mean, it's hard to improve off of QB2.
Except for there's only one space.
There is
to do it.
It's happened to be your goddamn quarterback. So
I do want to say, I think this is the only time this has ever happened where we've had literally the 1 and 2 in our beer bet. But yeah, I was proud of myself for just finally not picking a garbage bet to go down with. This was an exciting one. Like, this was an amazing, I mean, for real life purposes as well, because if you watched the game, you got to see the almost should have been comeback by the Buffalo Bills after I think being down by 27 at one point in the game, and they made it an overtime game. And if it wasn't for some referee hinkiness, I think that the Bills could have and probably should have won that one, but the Bucs ended up doing it.
Yeah, it was disappointing, but yeah, really good game. I enjoyed every second of that comeback there by the Bills, only because I wanted to see Tom Brady lose. So
I know. Well, and it would have benefited our beloved Packers, who turns out didn't really need it. I mean, it would have helped anyways.
Right.
But we ended up with the number 1 seed now in the NFC because the Cardinals lost to the Rams on Monday Night Football.
Thank you, Rams.
That's pretty exciting. I know.
Very exciting.
Look at them doing good things for us. I saw somebody post on Twitter. They said, look at that. Odell Beckham actually did help the Packers out this year.
Nice. I like that.
Right?
That's nice. All right, Jake. Well, I'll pay off this bet here. My shot. You are an amazing fantasy football prognosticator / genius. Congratulations on your victory.
I thank you, sir. And I'm just going to take a stab in the dark that's some fireball going down the gullet.
Sure is.
Hashtag not yet a sponsor, but we'll get them.
Hashtag should be.
We'll get them on board. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it a thing. Now, do we also want to? I want to. I'm not even going to ask. I asked last week just to be nice. I really want to talk about the update on our remaining season beer bet, which, as you might recall, and listeners might recall, is Cortland Sutton, weeks 13 and on. Is he going to score more than 11 points per game the rest of the season? Dustin, I posited this to you, and you took the over. And in week 13, it looked bad because he had 3.5 fantasy points. Yep. Now it looks worse because his average has moved down to 2.7 fantasy points.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
What in the hell? I was the guy saying to drop Cortland Sutton. Even I didn't think he would do this badly. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to totally concede this bet yet because I know anything can happen. So I know I don't want to prematurely evacuate this player. But he is basically droppable at this point, especially leading the fantasy playoffs. You cannot rely on him. So he's a roster clogger at this point. So if you're in your playoffs and there's a better option out there, don't hold on to the name recognition with him. Just drop him. Well,
this was brought up, not to bring up the other podcast that I'm on, but Ball Blast Fantasy Football had been brought up. Michelle said, or no, it was Kate, what would he have to do in a performance to make you comfortable starting him again? And like, even if the dude put up 20 fantasy points this week, I still wouldn't start him the following week. That's where I'm at with him.
No, me either. You just can't trust him unless for some reason, and I'm not trying to wish this into existence by any means, but if like Jerry Jeudy got hurt or Tim Patrick got hurt or something, basically Jeudy, because once Jeudy came back from injury, that's when Cortland Sutton's involvement in the passing game really started to go down to where it is now. So barring something like that, like I said, I'm not wishing that by any stretch of the imagination here. He's droppable at this point. But as I said, I'm not giving up hope on my bet yet. I will pay that out at the end of the season if that actually happens. But yeah, not looking good.
Fair enough.
Not looking good, Bob.
Let's move on to a more fun segment for both of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drunk, hammered drunk.
Drunk trade of the week.
This week's come to us from Reddit user Odinol. When life is hard and headaches are strong, use Odinol.
I was gonna say it sounds like a bad fucking medicine out there, Odinol, or like maybe it's like a cream or something you have to rub on your body for some sort of ailment.
Yeah. Or wasn't that Thor's dad's name was Odin, right?
Yes.
And so this would be like the god of aspirins, I suppose. In any case, Odinol is in a 10-team PPR redraft league and says, my brother and I got absolutely hammered around week 5 or 6 during a get-together with other guys in our league. Love those. I miss those. We haven't had one of those personally in some time. Would be nice to get that kind of action back on the table. In any case, they agreed to a trade where the user, Odinol, sent Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper, and Alex Collins. At this time, Chris Carson, they expected him to be done for the year.
Which
Alex Collins was the backup. And and they traded for Deebo Samuel and Miles Sanders. I think we spent like 5 hours trying to negotiate a good deal, they say. Seemed fair at the time, but has worked out very well for me. Deebo almost single-handedly revived my season. Dustin, this was sent in to us just about 2.5 weeks ago. So after that initial bit, what do you think about that trade?
Well, you know how I feel about Deebo. So giving me all the Deebo, I'm all for. And Miles Sanders, was this redraft?
Yep.
It was a redraft league. So, Miles Sanders, he's had a couple usable weeks here later in the season. I know he's kind of banged up. But yeah, with Deebo, I mean, that was fucking lights out, playing him all season long. Alex Collins didn't really work out. Amari in and out of the lineup, or he's been kind of dinged up, injured. Jerry Jeudy, same deal, was injured for a while. So yeah, obviously worked out for Odin there. I love that. And I don't know that I would have necessarily considered it a fair trade at the time either. I mean, just because Deebo was like wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 2 at that time, where like Amari was already kind of dinged up. Jerry Jeudy, I don't think he was hurt yet, or maybe he was coming off of injury. I don't recall, but it's not like he was blown up by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, I think Odin got the better end of that deal, hands down.
Yeah, this was an easy one. Of course, in retrospect, it's so easy to look at. And that's why we love to do it, because we love to be the idiots who look back on everything with 2020 vision and then go, ha, you guys are stupid. But at the time, I do want to bring up, you said about Jerry Jeudy. He had already been injured, but you're right. There was thought that he'd be back soon. So if this was week 6, let's say, because they said 5 or 6. If this was week 6, he was kind of on his way back in. And he had a couple of nice showings right away in the season. So maybe they think Deebo's a fluke. That's going to come crashing back down to earth. Then I'm going to get these 2 really solid receivers and an upgrade at running back. And none of that really turned out to be the case. Alex Collins, it's not like he did anything, but neither is Miles Sanders outside of basically one game. So
very true.
Now, before I get to, because I want to ask your thoughts on Deebo now going forward, but I got this update in from them today. The story concluded this week with my brother thoroughly kicking my ass by 60 points and knocking me out of the playoffs. So
karma.
You get the gloating.
That's right.
Get the gloating out there into the internet, and karma finds it. Karma has Google, so they can track that shit down. The
fantasy football goddess is a fickle mistress.
Yeah, to get knocked out with Deebo on your roster, it hurts. Let me tell you, as somebody in that exact situation, redraft, it hurts. Now, so I wanted to ask about Deebo long term, because obviously he was, I'm going to say our guy, but he was mostly your guy. Like, you were so over the moon with him coming into this year. So next year then, are you just as high on him? Are you worried that he's not getting as many targets and he's been used as a running back lately?
That is a little bit concerning, but I think that's more of a facet of all the running backs being injured on the San Francisco offense right now, as they always are. I don't know what their strength and conditioning coach needs to do to work specifically with the running backs, but the running backs always seem to be injured on that team. Or maybe they just got to find different guys that, try not to get hurt on a daily basis, because it is just fucking ridiculous. But I think it's just been more of a function that they have no running backs that they can rely on to stay healthy. So Debo's getting those kind of carries, although he was always kind of used in kind of that expanded running back role where it was like quick screens or bubble screens, or they do end around, jet sweeps, things like that with him. So he was always kind of involved where you get maybe 1 or 2 a game. So it's not like this is something new we've seen from Debo. It's just he's being used a lot more in that respect right now. But to get back to your regular question, no.
Original.
First question. Yeah, I am very high on Debo. I don't see any reason why this would change as things stand right now. Obviously, come the offseason, not that I would expect them to bring in another wide receiver or something, but who knows with GMs and coaches these days. We can't predict anything, but assuming things stay relatively similar to what they are now, I see no reason why Debo wouldn't repeat this. And I don't care what people say about, well, it's because Jimmy G and, he's a game manager. And no, I think even with Trey Lance, like Debo is a special player. We've seen it now 2 of his 3 seasons, because when he was a rookie 2 years ago, we basically saw flashes of this. It wasn't quite to this level, but I mean, he produced very well. Last year was injured, kind of a lost season, and now we see him fully healthy again. And look what he's doing, just lighting the world on fire. So I don't see any reason why they would go away from using him in this way. So I think moving forward, he'll be a wide receiver 1, not the wide receiver 1, a wide receiver 1 next year.
I like that, because he's a guy, you're right, that they manufacture touches for. And so that quarterback switch doesn't scare me as much as it does for a lot of other players. Like, sometimes quarterbacks can just develop stronger relationships with certain players. And you saw that with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, certainly this year, like that. And Robert Woods is kind of more in the Debo Samuel mold, where he gets, those touches. But even people forget, before he got hurt, he was still very relevant in a high performing wide receiver. So Debo will be the same. Hope you got him on the cheap, because it's going to be pretty tough, I think, to do that now. Maybe people are freaking out about the lack of targets. There's a teeny discount to get, but hard to say.
Yeah. I mean, you might be able to get a tiny discount if people aren't believing in him, but try it. See what you can get.
Always try it. It's better to try and to fail than
that's right. The worst
try and be a stinky pants.
That's right. The worst thing that will happen is that your league mate will reject your trade and then go into the league chat and ridicule you for a bad trade offer.
And then egg your house, and then put a flaming bag of poop on your doorstep. That's it. But that's worst case scenario. That's the worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario. Yeah, absolutely.
We've all been through worse.
True story. Story.
Dustin, I had a question for you. Oh, no, go on.
No. Go ahead.
I just had a brief question for you, because again, there's nothing planned here, but I know you probably had a couple of topics brewed in your head. But before we get to that, the one other semi-serious fantasy football thing, at least that I wanted to touch on, was running backs this year, of course, sucked. Not overall, or I shouldn't say not as individuals necessarily, but overall running backs have sucked, because injuries, basically just injuries.
Yes.
And then some underperformers too, for sure. And then some, even the running back by committee wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be this year. It was really just the injuries. So next year, do you go into your redraft? And we talked about this a little bit on a previous episode, but I'm curious to know, is there a chance that you take a running back in the first round next year?
Yes. Yeah, I think
And-
it. I mean, it really depends where in the draft, where in the draft order I am for that. But yeah, I would definitely consider almost 100% say I would take a running back in the first round.
Okay.
I mean, look at JT this year. I mean, he's been just lights out. I mean, and again, with injury, you can't predict injury, but I mean, Derrick Henry, he was a league winner. Like, he was running away by far, pun intended, running away with the running back crown this year because he was that far, leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else, even without his receiving. He's not as a receiving back. So, yeah, I think going RB in the first round is not a bad thing. It's just like any player you draft, it's just kind of luck, a lot of luck involved if they get injured or not. So, I mean, that doesn't change my drafting strategy necessarily. If anything, I might lean into the heavy RB to start the draft because there is a lot of depth and quality depth at wide receiver, where I kind of did the opposite. I went, running back first round, but then loaded up on wide receiver because I'm like, oh, I love this guy. Draft him. Oh, love this guy.
Right.
Draft him. Love this guy. Draft him. And then all of a sudden I got like 6 wide receivers and 1 running back. And I'm like, I should maybe draft some running backs here, and kind of got myself into a bind. So yeah, if anything, I might go a little heavier running back, start running back heavy, do your wide receivers, get your quality wide receivers in the middle rounds, maybe throw a running back or tight end in there, depending on how the draft is looking. And then kind of the late single digit rounds, hammer, some of those committee running backs, like the James Conner type, where there is a path for relevance, just to try to get some, quality depth on my team.
I like that, because I was thinking about it, because this is another hot topic of debate on the social medias.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking about it. It's like, there's still been so many wide receivers that crapped out on you this year too, that were drafted highly. Maybe not to the extent of the running backs just because of the injury, but like Stephon Diggs has been really hit and miss this year.
Yep.
DK Metcalf has been disappointing. Allen Robinson obviously has been crazy disappointing. There's been busts at, AJ Brown had injuries that he was dealing with and was taken out. So it's not just running backs. So then I look at the first round. It's like, well, am I going to take a running back? Yeah, probably. Because who else am I going to take? I personally, this year, this, but listeners, I drafted Travis Kelce in the first round. I think I drafted from the 7th spot, I want to say, in our redraft league, and snatched up Travis Kelce. Like, yes, let me set and forget my tight end. And I mean, yeah, he's been tight end 1, but it's not like he's blown away the competition enough for me to justify doing that next year.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So, who are you going to draft then? I'm not going to take a quarterback still in the first round. That's still not my method. I'm going to draft one earlier, but I'm not going to take one in the first. So then you're almost, it's like I'm going to draft a running back again. I just hopefully I luck out and get one that stays healthy.
Yep, exactly. Because that's what it's. I mean, it's all luck. That's all it is. It's just all luck. There's no way to know who's going to be healthy, who's going to be injured.
A little bit of skill.
Okay.
Like drafting James Conner, in the 9th round, because you knew he was going to blow up for like 30 touchdowns. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that guy just continues to just perform and do his thing. Jesus. Although a little dinged up, there is a chance he might miss this week. So that's concerning with your fantasy playoffs here.
It's, I'm fine. In leagues where I have James Conner, I already have like 4 other running backs because he was my 5th. Hey, Nate Hamilton stopped into the chat, by the way. He says, I know to comment here being YouTube, since you don't look at Twitter comments anymore. Nate, we don't know how to find Twitter comments anymore. It's not that we don't look at them. We plainly don't know where they live. Or I don't, I should say.
Yeah, I don't know where the Twitter comments are either. So, but yeah, thanks for joining us, Nate.
He says, hi, guys, by the way. Listeners, Nate Hamilton on Twitter. Follow him, Dominate FF on the old Twitter sphere. He's one of our favorites. He's been on the show before. He'll be on again if we're lucky.
Yeah. So, I mean,
But-
he is big time. So,
but yeah, the running back thing, I don't know. I think it happens every year where we have this damn issue and people overcompensate the following year for what happened in the previous year. And we're going to see it in perpetuity until we die. That's just how fantasy football works.
well, that's right. We are just wired to overreact to the tiniest bit of news and tiniest bit, because it's right here. It's like recency bias. It's just right here. What happened? Boom. That's all we know.
Well, yeah, because see, what happens is the recent information comes into your head and it has to punch and uppercut its way through all of the ingrained data from like the last decade. But it just fucking mows that down and pops right into the front there. And it stays there. And it's not great.
It is not great.
That was my analysis of fantasy football in a nutshell.
Nice. So, Jake, I want your opinion on this, and I know I already told you about this, but I just for the show, I want to bring it up and get your thoughts on it. So, the wife and I were out for kind of late lunch. What was it? Last Friday? Yeah, it was last Friday. So we're out at the bar and having a late lunch, and they had the ESPN on the TV screen, and it was football was on. Of course, she's like, "Well, why is there a football show on? They're not, there's no games today." I'm like, "Well, because football's king, and what else is on a Friday afternoon in the middle of winter?" Yeah,
that's
fair.
Really,
there's not much going on. So
Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah, so she's like, "Okay, that's fair." So she made a Super Bowl prediction. Now, this is a woman that started watching football when we started dating. She had never watched football growing up, didn't come from a football family. She's a hockey family. Finally got her turned into a Packer fan and a Badger fan, which is probably one of my greatest life achievements, let's be honest. So she understands football, but doesn't do fantasy football, doesn't care about football really, but understands and follows it enough. So she's like, "I want to make a Super Bowl prediction." I'm like, "All right." I'm like, so first team she picked was the Tampa Bay Pirates. And I said, "Oh, you're so close." I'm like, you're so close. And she's like, "The Buccaneers." I'm like, "Okay, there you go. You got one." She's like, "Okay, so the Buccaneers." And then we probably spent about 5 minutes for her trying to figure out an AFC team. But ultimately settled on the New Englanders. And I'm like, "Oh, so close. You're so close. It's the New England Patriots, but you got the right area. You got the New England part right." So I'll give that.
If this was an answer to like a Trivial Pursuit question, like you'd give it to her. It was close enough. It was right on the cusp.
No,
you would not give that if the answer was New England Patriots and she said New Englanders, you would not give that to her.
Fuck no.
You are an anarchist.
You don't take Trivial Pursuit seriously. So
apparently not to your standard. Jeez.
You got to be cutthroat playing Trivial Pursuit. There's an answer it's spelled out on the card what the answer is. And that is the answer. That is the only acceptable answer.
You are the fucking Monica of board games. And
we both play the same way in our household, so it's fine.
Anyways, go on.
Anyway, back to the story. So she's got her two teams. I was like, okay. I'm like, actually, for just randomly throwing out teams, they're both doing very well. First in both their divisions and doing very well as far as the conference standings go. So I was like, okay. So this was this is where things kind of went off the rails a little bit. So she says the score is going to be 28-24, but they're going to score they're going to win on a last minute field goal from the 50-yard line. And I said, well, one, that would be an incredibly long field goal at, like 67 yards. And two, if the team was up by 4 or by a point, it'd be 25-24. They would have no need to kick the field goal to win at the last second because they would have already won the game. So I said, I'll take the 28-24. I'll hold you to 28-24. But I'm like,
Yeah,
just
that's a good guess.
yeah.
It's a good guess, not just for the score, but also for the teams. Obviously, the Bucks and the Patriots. I've seen a lot of people float that out there, so she's in good company, absolutely. Yeah. And in
I was honestly impressed.
Revenge narratives. I mean, that's if one
and
were to believe,
she did pick the Patriots to win.
Okay, so Patriots 28-24.
Yeah.
Which is good. I guess I would rather the Patriots. Yeah, I hate back-to-back Super Bowl champs. I hate that. I do. I don't want Tom Brady to have all the nice things anymore.
There's that piece of it, but it's also New England has won so many Super Bowls that it's like, do they really need another one? I don't want either of those things to happen. I hope neither team makes it to the Super Bowl. I'm just going to be honest, because Tom Brady doesn't need another Super Bowl, and neither do the Patriots. They both had too many lately.
Agreed. I agree with that. Now, to her point about a last-second field goal winning it, there's a small world. There's like a 0.5% chance that the Patriots would be up 25-24, and there's like 13 seconds that they couldn't burn up. And maybe instead of punting it, they decide to go for the long field goal. And technically that would be a last-minute win with the field goal, I guess. It's
a stretch. It's a stretch.
Yeah. Would
they really kick a 67-yard field goal?
Bill would.
Knowing that you could return it out of the end zone for a run back.
It's fair. Okay, 0.001% chance of that happening.
I mean, I could see Bill doing it just because he could be like, "Hey, fuck you, Tom.
I do what I want. Analytics be damned." Do you have different teams in mind?
Of course.
Well, let's do it this way. Do you have different ones that you project to be in there, or that you would like to be in there? Besides the Packers.
Well, the Packers is one of my teams. And that's partially being a homer pick, but also I feel like they're going to make it this year. But the NFC is so tough because there's so many good teams this year in the NFC. I know it's more with my heart than my brain, but I think it's warranted.
A little groin.
A little groin, yes. I think this is going to be the year. I think it's the year they all throw it together. But for the AFC, I had picked cripes. Who did I pick? Oh, I picked the Bills.
Cripes.
I think the Bills are going to turn it around, and I think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl this year.
Well, if they can ride the momentum off the last game and play like they did in the second half of the third quarter on the rest of the way, they would be dynamite. Mm-hmm. And it's not like that's not within their range of outcomes. It's very much there. And the AFC, it sucks because there's only like 3 teams in the AFC that I can see going in.
That you feel good about. Yeah, I know. That was the tough thing.
And that's it. And I can't think of a 4th team, I don't think. I mean, yes, Patriots make a lot of sense.
Yep.
And Mac Jones, the question is, can Mac Jones sustain a playoff run to get them there? He's been good in what he's been asked to do. Actually, he's been great in what he's been asked to do. It's just like, as things really kind of ramp up, how much is that going to fall to Bill? How much is that going to fall on Mac Jones?
Yeah, but I mean, Mac Jones, he played at Alabama. He had it was very high profile there with that program. Played in the national championship games and all the big games with the SEC. So I mean, he's used to that pressure. I think it'd fall more on the defense. I mean, their defense is playing lights out this season.
Yeah,
because I mean, their offense is fine. It is what it is. It's nothing special, but it's the defense that has either been winning them games or really keeping them in games, and they haven't had to ask the offense to do so much. So I think it would really fall down to that. If that defense can continue to do what they've been doing, yeah, I think they could go. I don't know that they would win, but yeah, other than like the Patriots, the Chiefs, and the Bills, it's like.
You know what I'd like to see and has a reasonable shot at it is the Chargers. So they're sitting, I think, 8-5 right now. Mm-hmm. Wait, would that be right? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. They're at the top of their division,
Mm-hmm.
and the Chargers would be fantastic to see. I would like to see the Chargers, and I mean, obviously the Packers. If I'm being a complete homer dick about it, and if not, then the Cardinals. I would like to see Kyler and the Cardinals if it's not us going there.
It's tough to say who would come out of the NFC though, to be honest, because I mean, obviously we got the Packers, but the Cardinals. Yeah, obviously they could do it. They've been playing very well, but then you got the Rams as well with that really good defense. I mean, their offense is no slouch either. Tampa Bay, their offense is lights out. Their defense, while it's been a little suspect lately, they've been very, very good. Who am I missing here of the other good NFC teams?
No, that's about it.
That's about
No,
it.
I'm kidding. No, honestly, the NFC is so heavy at the top. It's kind of insane.
I mean, Dallas
like there's almost too many.
Is like a dark horse. Their offense is outstanding. Their defense has been playing much better.
Micah Parsons.
Oh God,
defensive player of the year. He's a
by far
rookie.
Jesus, he is so fun to watch. Like, and he's in on like every single play on defense. He's everywhere on the field. It's incredible. Incredible.
This is a great lead into this. Have you ever considered, Dustin, playing in IDP leagues, individual defensive player leagues? No, just an immediate no.
Have I considered it? No.
Yeah.
Would I be up for it? Sure, I would try it. I don't follow. It's just a whole nother facet of fantasy to look at as far as stats and defensive players. I know who like some good defensive players are, but it's not like
the top build ones.
Yeah, I don't focus on defense. I'm an offensive guy.
I'll say I played in one last year for the very first time, and then I played in a different one this year. It was like a charity league, so I couldn't say no, to a charity league, of course. And it was, mostly offensive minded, but there was like a small bit of IDP. I think like 6 spots for IDP. And I will say it makes watching games more interesting on Sunday.
I'm sure.
It's like I'm tracking more because if we don't have the red zone on, which of course we always trying to, but if we don't, and you're forced to watch a game that you're not invested in, like the Packers aren't playing, just watching a game, it makes it so much more entertaining because you have more things. Like let's say you have one wide receiver in on offense, and then you're just basically waiting for them to get back on the field for fantasy purposes. Now, hopefully you can have a little bit, a little bit more action out there. I don't know. I enjoy it. I just want to say you should try it. You should try a free IDP league once.
I think, like you said, like a charity league or something that would kind of be like, it's just like a redraft league, basically, where it's one season done just to get your feet wet. I think that'd be a good introductory way of doing it, where it's, like I said, kind of low stakes. I mean, I'm open to it. I've never done it. I don't necessarily have a desire to do it, but it's not that I would say if someone's like, hey, I have this IDP league charity, or, it's a free league, just we're looking for someone to fill a spot. I'd say, okay, I'd try it. I'd give it a whirl.
Shut up, dick. I don't do IDP.
Yeah. Fuck IDP. Those people, you guys are weird. I wouldn't say that.
You wouldn't say that. To be clear, wouldn't say that.
No, okay. No, obviously.
Good.
I'm all about inclusivity here.
That is not a word, but the sentiment is appreciated nonetheless.
That's not a word? Are you sure?
Inclusivity?
Yeah.
I don't think that quite gets there. I think if you had the paperclip function pop up in our recording platform, it would offer an alternative for you, but that alone would not be the word. And I know that you're Googling it right now. The word is inclusivity, Dustin. Inclusivity.
Did you hear that?
No.
No, it didn't come through. Nothing.
That's no. What are you trying to happen? What are you trying to make?
Well, I was pushing the little speaker button so Google would pronounce it, or say the word.
I promise you, it's not pronouncing it inclusivity.
I know you were. I was just gonna say you were right. I was wrong. You're smart. I'm dumb. You're good looking. I'm not so good looking.
But you are killing it with the references tonight. I appreciate that. Was that a second Sandler reference? Didn't we already get a Sandler reference earlier in the show even?
I don't know. Producer, go back and rewind the tape. Check it out.
We do need a producer for this show.
We should.
One probably to get us moving along in episodes like this. Listener. Were there other things that you wanted to talk about tonight before we get into our regular bookends?
Not really. It's just more of, there's a couple scary injuries here going into the fantasy playoffs that I think people just need to monitor. Austin Eckler looks like should play this week. It's a Thursday night game, so it's coming up damn quick, but it is an important one against the Chiefs, if I'm remembering correctly. I suppose I could pull up the schedule and be like a real host here and have actual information available.
Jeez.
I know.
Producer.
I know. We need a producer so bad. Someone that'd be right in my ear saying, yep, you're right.
You just want somebody in your ear to tell you that you're right all the time. That's not a producer thing. You just want that like through life.
So, yes, it's the Chiefs at the Chargers on Thursday night this week. So, that one is concerning, especially for fantasy playoffs wise. Obviously not for the Chargers and their playoff berth because they're pretty, they should get a wild card berth here. But for the fantasy playoffs, though, I mean, I know I've got him on my number one seeded team. Makes me very nervous with him being out or possibly out this week. I know it's trending. I think they said after the game this last Sunday that he could have kept playing had they needed him to, but they didn't feel like they needed him, so they held him out, which was nice. But definitely something to monitor because, yeah, that scares me. And he's been such a stud this season.
Is there a running back behind him on the depth chart that if you needed a last second pivot from, you'd feel comfortable adding?
Justin Jackson, I guess.
That's so gross.
Josh Kelly.
It's gross. This is the
Larry
same thing
Roundtree.
we do every year with Austin Eckler. Because, he's a small guy. He's going to get injured. And then when he gets injured, we're like, okay, we all think we know who the backup is. And we never know who the backup is.
I mean, if I had to take a bet, I would take the first guy named Justin Jackson. Okay. That would be the one I would lean to if I had if I was forced to start someone from the Chargers because I had no other running backs. Mm-hmm. That would be the guy I'd go with.
Can I tell you what I'd rather do?
What would you rather do?
If you can put Austin Eckler in your flex, knowing this information that you know now, and presume that you have two healthy running backs that you feel comfortable starting, put him in your flex. And then last second, I'd rather pivot to a guy like Jalen Guyton, a wide receiver on that team, than even the direct running back behind him.
Although Keenan Allen's supposed to be back this week, Mike Williams looks like he's going to play, so Guyton would kind of be backseat there.
Guyton still had some utility even when both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams have been out there. It's not been every game, of course. But I have reheard for sure. I guess Keenan Allen would be back off the COVID list at that point.
Yeah. He's been activated from the COVID list, so should be ready to go.
Just hope that you don't have to deal with that shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's my fantasy advice. Just hope that you don't have to deal with that shit.
Yep. Absolutely. Good call, Jake. Good call. Strong analysis there.
Thanks. I try my best. Do we want to get into our starts of the week at least?
Yeah, let's do it. So recap last week. Jake, you had Devonta Freeman versus Cleveland. Finished as RB22 with 12.2 points.
Not great.
I'd said RB2. I mean, it's a solid flex play. I mean, I'll give that one to you.
It's not that top 12 I always
I
want
know,
with these,
I know, but that's not like it was a total bust like mine. Like that was solid production that you could have used and probably needed to boost yourself into the playoffs this week. So
Fair enough.
I will give you that one. Where mine, on the other hand, did not work out whatsoever. So I had Russell Gage versus Carolina. Finished as wide receiver 47 with 10.4 points. And Jake, I know you're very happy because you were talking big. You said if he finishes as a top 25 wide receiver, you'd take 2 shots this week. And he did not. So you dodged a bullet on that one. Congratulations.
I don't want to congratulate on somebody doing bad, but I wasn't a huge fan of the matchup. But here's what I want to point out. Isn't this crazy? You just said that my guy was, for all intents and purposes, a hit, while yours was this big bust. But they were separated by less than 2 fantasy points.
True.
I mean, yes, their ranking within their position was much different, but in terms of the actual fantasy production, not so much. So I think that just more speaks to like how crappy running backs are right now.
Very true.
And how deep wide receiver can be on a week. So I don't want to call your guy an outright bust. An outright bust, like he puts up, Cortland Sutton numbers. Then I would call him an outright bust. But given this, I think he was fine. He was fine.
Okay. I'll take it. I mean, if you're going to be nice about it, I'll allow it.
You were nice to me. I feel like I have to return the favor.
All right. So, Jake, who is your current start of the week for this week?
Well, I'm going back to the I think I'm going back to the running back and it's just because, again, it's the fantasy playoffs and running backs are, what's the word? Shit. I called the poop shit this time, Dustin. Aren't you proud of me?
I am so proud of you.
And as much as I actually wanted to go back to Devonta Freeman, I think I'm gonna pivot, because the thing about Devonta Freeman that I liked last week was he was still actively involved all game long. He actually got bolted on a touchdown, I believe. But other than that, he's the guy, and he played with a backup quarterback. So Lamar Jackson got injured right away in the first quarter, I want to say, and then Tyler Huntley had to store him back in, and it kind of worked, and it worked for Devonta Freeman, but I'm a little too nervous still for him this week. So I'm actually going to your guy this week. I'm one of your guys. I'm willing to start Myles Gaskin against the Jets. And it's only because he's playing the Jets. Believe me when I say, if he was playing any other team, I'd be out. But the Jets are, again, shit against running backs. They are allowing the most fantasy points by 4 points per game. The second worst is the Lions. They're allowing 24.6. The Jets are allowing 28.1 fantasy points per game to running backs. Even if Myles Gaskin can just get in there for a touchdown, he's going to provide utility in this disaster of the week.
Jake, I'm.
Oh, Dustin got so disgusted that I mentioned Myles Gaskin name, even as a former Myles Gaskin truther, that he exited himself from the program in protest. He's like, nope, fuck this guy. I won't allow this on my show. I don't know what he was about to say, but I bet it was good. Oh, Dustin, you're back. I thought you got so aggravated at me mentioning Myles Gaskin that you bailed.
No, I would never do such a thing. When you're trying to click through tabs and you click the X button by mistake?
Sure.
To close it out, that's what happened. So anyway, what I was going to say is I'm going to allow you to change your start of the week here, since Myles Gaskin is on the COVID list.
Oh, Dustin!
I mean, there is a chance he'll be active, but he tested positive for COVID and he's fully vaccinated. So, I mean, there is a chance he could play this week, but I'll allow you to pivot if you want to.
I hate this game. This is why we did a show about nothing this week. Is there so much of this bullshit? Okay, do me a favor. Why don't we kick off with yours then? I'll seek out an option 2 here to use.
All right, so mine is Devonta Smith versus the Washington football team. Plainly spoken, Washington's pass defense has not been very good. They are 30th against wide receivers in the league this season. So that's not good, Bob. They're not good. They're giving up an average to all the wide receivers on a team. So this is team wide receiver, 39.5 points, fantasy points per game. So they're giving up a crap ton of points. Philly is fighting for playoff berth still. They're still in the hunt. So they need this win. And they're going to play strong. Let's be honest. They're not going to give up. I love this rookie. I was hesitant and off him in the offseason. I didn't think he was going to produce like he has. Had a couple of these other wide receivers, Chase, Waddle, not performed so outstanding like they have this year. Devonta would be talked right up there as one of the best rookie wide receivers. He's flashed very well. I think this is a great opportunity for him to go out and flash again this week. Fire him up.
I like that. I was off Devonta Smith, I think, too early in the season. And I didn't give him enough time. And I didn't trust Jalen Hurts to be able to keep him consistent week to week was my issue. But I actually really like that for this week. I found a second option here.
Yay.
So I don't like it. Actually, you know what? I like it about as much as my first one because I don't like saying Myles Gaskin out loud. So Jimmy Garoppolo is getting the start against the Falcons this week. And so here's another option that I find icky in almost every other situation. But Jimmy Garoppolo he's been consistent. I hate it because one of my biggest preseason pronouncements was that Trey Lance was going to take the league by storm, around like week 5. That's all he needed. And that didn't happen. So instead, Jimmy Garoppolo gets my nod here this week. The Falcons are allowing the second most points to opposing fantasy quarterbacks. And what I love about the matchup more than that is Matt Ryan has been just good enough to keep the Falcons in games to where a dink and dunker a la Jimmy Garoppolo can have utility all the way through the game. It's not like he's going to come out bombing in the first 2 quarters, probably, and put them up so much that they defer to the run game for the rest of it. I think it's going to be even enough where he's going to have to stay passing throughout the entire game. So I like him this week.
Nice. I like that as well. And I'll be honest, I was looking at that for our beer bet for this week. Jimmy G versus Matt Ryan, but ultimately I said no.
Didn't want to do that? Why? Because you didn't trust it was even enough?
No, because I think Jimmy G will outperform him, to be honest.
And you knew that's who I'd take.
That's right.
Well, hey, this could have been a Chicago quarterback versus Lions quarterback debacle that I enwrapped myself in like 4 weeks ago. But you're not going to do that, huh? Not for the good of the podcast?
Not for the good of the podcast, no.
All right. Listeners, you heard it here first. I love you more than Dustin does.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, well, what's your backup plan here?
I don't know. I'm looking for one. I'm going to be honest. I'm checking it out.
Can
I was thinking,
throw out an option or no?
Sure. Yeah, if you've got one, go for it.
I mean, I'd be happy to take over for this week if you're comfortable with it. Obviously, so you would still get to make the decision on who you want.
Yeah.
What do you think? You feeling good?
Sure. Hit me.
Perfect, because this came to me because we were just talking earlier in the show, of course, about AFC teams and who could make it to the Super Bowl. Two of the teams that ended up mentioned, ultimately because I forced one of them in, was the Chiefs and the Chargers. So what I would love to know from you is Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert, the kid, Justin Herbert. Total fantasy points, another quarterback duel that I think both of these guys could end up in the top 5 again.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with you there. Who do I want? I hate having to bet against Mahomes because he's Patrick Mahomes, but I think I will. I think I'll take Herbert only because the Chiefs offense just hasn't been clicking for the most part. I know this last week against the Raiders, they lit the world on fire. So outside of this last week, though, they haven't really been doing Chief things. Maybe this was the kickstart they needed this last week, and they'll get things back on track. But let's be honest, the Raiders defense isn't that scary of a defense, where the Chargers actually have some good pieces on their team and have a fairly solid defense. So I'm going to go with Herbert.
I was hoping I could get you on name value alone to force you to go back Mahomes, because I also believe that Justin Herbert will come out on the top end of this, but I do think it's going to be fairly close, because I think this is going to be one of those games where the Chiefs are going to, it's like make or break time. We're talking about a live look at a potential playoff matchup down the road here. And so they have to,
Yeah, and it's for the division too, essentially, because the Chiefs are 9-4 and the Chargers are 8-5. So I mean, it's essentially for who's going to win the AFC and for has significant seeding for the playoffs here as well.
So I think I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I can continue this streak of dynamite head-to-head matchups for us, because I don't want any of that trash anymore.
No. So here's the one I was thinking about, and ultimately I was like, So it was total fantasy points, Joe Mixon. They're playing the Broncos, and I was going to say with Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams combined. Joe Mixon's the number 3 overall running back on the season.
Joe Mixon versus both?
Yeah. Total fantasy points.
Hold on now. Can we double up potentially on this?
I was thinking it would be Denver very easily.
Oh, okay.
Because
that's who I was going to take.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I mean, as much as I've shit on Joe Mixon, he's had an outstanding season.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, the dynamic duo of running backs, I was like, that seems a little lopsided to me, because I would want Denver in that situation, and I'm pretty sure that's what you would have picked, and I'm pretty sure they would both outscore Joe Mixon. So it's like I don't feel like that one's as close as initially thought in my head.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So all right, we don't have to use that. We'll go with just one beer bet for the week.
Yay. All right. Well, I would normally say that's the end of our show because we have nothing left on our show sheet, but we didn't have a show sheet really today, so we'll just end the show here. Go out, check your waiver wires, still be active on your waiver wires, even if you're not in your playoffs, the championship bracket. Go out and be active in your waiver wire. Still be an active participant in your league. Hopefully your league has some sort of punishment for being in the fantasy toilet bowl and the fantasy loser of your league, because that just makes it more fun. But yes, be active in your league till the bitter end, whether you're in it or not. It just makes for a more competitive and fun league. Do you concur?
Yeah, just don't be a lazy dullard.
That's right. That's right.
Be cool, man.
Be cool. Go out, give us a rate and review wherever you listen to your podcast. It helps everyone find us more, which we really appreciate. Go out to YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, click on the little bell. It will alert you, believe it or not, whenever we go live, like we are currently doing right now, so you can see our beautiful faces and interact with us in the chat. We love having everyone in the chat with us, so please go out and do that. Go out, find our podcast on Twitter at Drinking Fantasy. We will answer any of your fantasy playoff start-sit questions, any of your trade options out there for the playoffs. If you still have trading open, we will give you assistance there, or any sort of life advice as well. We're here for you for everything, not just fantasy football.
Yeah, like what's the best way to cook a turkey if you don't have a working oven? That's an example of a question that you could ask to us. And I mean, we'll give you an answer. Right, Dustin? We'll
That's
say
right.
something.
The grill.
Oh, I was going to say the dryer. You should direct all food-related questions to my co-host, Dustin.
Very
Luntz.
true. This is true. So, Jake, where can folks find you on Twitter for all the greatness you bring?
Well, that's a heavy word there, but they can find me at Jake Trowbridge.
Nice. And you can find me at FF Dusty Dog. And until next week, folks, keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.
Where's the outro video? Here it is.